Well, I found a child's foot in the garden today. And it seemed odd, because it's not the kind of thing you find every day in the garden. So I asked the gardener, I said, "Hey, have you ever found a child's foot in the garden?" Oh, and it worried me, his response. He kind of ducked his head down and cowered, looking a bit guilty, and kind of twisted his head side to side over his shoulders and looked at these strange these mounds of dirt and grass in our backyard. And he looked real nervous. I had never noticed the mounds in the yard by the garden before. I don't spend that much time out there. I mean, normally, when you go out there, you walk through the garden, you're kind of looking at the vegetables, right? But one day, I'm walking through the garden, and I find a child's foot sticking out of the ground under a tomato plant. So I asked the gardener. It could have happened to anybody, but it happened to me. I don't consider myself special because I notice little details like mounds in your backyard and child's feet sticking out of the ground under tomato plants. I'm probably still pretty average, I have to admit. But I thought there might be something strange going on in our garden. So I had to think about it for a second. Then I told the gardener, I said, "Hey, you're doing such a good job. You know what? You can take the rest of the day off. Yeah, just go on home. Go on home." Then, as I'm wondering, is there something strange going in our backyard? These feet sticking out of tomato plants and shit. So I went and I rented one of them machines with a big bucket on the front. What do they call those things? They dig really fast. And these mounds were big. Looked like there were going to be some big plants growing out of them someday. So I went and rented one of them. What are they called? Backhoe. I went and rented a backhoe. And I attached it to the back of my Prius and started towing it home. I can tell you, towing a backhoe home doesn't do much for the mileage of the Prius. I got about halfway home and I had to disconnect the backhoe from the Prius and pick up the Prius in the big yellow bucket, elevated up, so we don't run over anybody or hit anybody. That Prius just ran out of go. So I started driving home with the Prius and the big bucket to dig up the big mounds of dirt in the backyard that the gardener was looking guilty about when I asked him if he'd ever seen a child's foot in the garden sticking out of the ground under the tomato plants. He looked. And you know what? I'm driving along. We're getting about halfway home, and that goddamn Prius fell in the lake. It just rolled off and fell in the lake. Not that it was any good. I couldn't even get the backhoe towed home with it. So I just drove the backhoe home, and when I got there, I had to get in the backyard, so I had to knock down the fence to get in the backyard. Now, the neighbor's fence, not ours. We don't really have a fence. Didn't seem like a big deal until my neighbor came out with that shotgun. And that's when I really got lucky. Now, anybody who's listening, I want to give you some advice about backhoes and shotguns and pissed off neighbors. There's this thing called ricochet. Well, I'd knocked down the neighbor's fence, But I don't think that was the big deal with him. That didn't really seem to piss him off as much as the fact that his wife was under it when I ran over it with the backhoe. It was kind of a squishy deal, you know. Oh. So he shot that goddamn shotgun, and fortunately, as I had had that Prius propped up on the big yellow bucket right before it fell in the fucking lake, he missed me. There was a big old ricochet. But unfortunately, it killed my dog. Oh, it was a big dog. It was easy to hit. About the size of a horse. At least I don't have to buy all that food now. But the good part was that it went right through my dog and killed my neighbor. So you got one of them through and throughs, 2 targets with one. So I got the dead dog, and I got a dead neighbor in my backyard, and a pretty nice shotgun. I'll take it. A new shotgun that's pretty nice. Missing one shell. I can reload it. Yeah, so things aren't looking too bad at the moment, as long as the cops don't show up. So I rolled the backhoe up to one of those suspicious mounds in the backyard that the gardener had looked at, was lurking at, looked fearful about, when I asked him if he'd ever seen a child's foot in the garden. And I started backhoeing the shit out of that mound. There was dirt flying everywhere. I must have covered the entire backyard with the dirt from that one big mound. Oh, and there was a point when I stopped. I had to stop when I realized, God damn, what the fuck has our gardener been doing out here? I mean, there were like 17 little legs that got tossed onto the roof of the house, and I got a dozen severed arms hanging down from that grate above my head on the backhoe. And then there's a skull over there on the ground. Of course, the other dog's alive. He didn't get ricocheted. And he's a skull fucker. That's a horny motherfucking dog. If you've never seen a dog fuck a skull, it's quite something to see. First, they'll roll it around with their nose and sniff at it. Then they'll lick at it, roll it around a little bit more. I mean, he must have rolled that skull. Well, was it? Yeah, it was a skull, wasn't it? He must have rolled it over 7 or 8 times before he decided where he was going to stick in his little doggy penis. Then he skull fucked that thing. Woo-hoo! Ow! Ow!